Hello, it's December 30th, 2021, the last meeting of the year and the last meeting before the 1.21 backdrop code freeze. We'll go ahead and get started with some introductions. I'm Nate Lampton. I'm Quick Sketch on the internet. I'm core committer, and I'm coming from Oakland, California. Let's go to Tim and then Robert.
Hi, my name is Tim. I'm in no, I'm not in St. Paul. My name is St. Paul Tim. I'm in Deerwood, Minnesota. And yeah, that's it for today.
Thanks, Tim. Robert and then Joseph.
I'm Robert Lang, bug folder on the internet, coming to you from a very rainy Altadena, California.
Awesome. Thank you, Robert. Joseph and then Greg.
Hi, I'm Joseph. I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm a backend developer. Yeah.
Thank you, Greg, and then Wilbur.
I am Greg. I'm joining from Greece. Thank you to help.
My name's Wilbur Ince. I'm coming from the Twin Cities of the USA. I go by Wilbur, W-Y-L-B-U-R.
Thanks, Wilbert. Luke, and then Justin.
I'm Luke McCormick, San Ramon, California. I'm a technical account manager, and I'm checking in to try to stay up to speed.
Thanks, Luke. Justin, and then finally Jen.
Justin Christopherson in Denver, Colorado, and I've been helping with infrastructure.
And Jen Lampton from Oakland, California. Hello, everyone.
Justin, looks like you're suffering from Christmas fallout there in your room. Okay, sorry everyone, not professional of my part, but okay, so it is the last meeting before code freeze. I think last time I was in a meeting, I incorrectly stated when code freeze was going to happen, because we have code freeze on January 1st. That's the official normal date for a code freeze, is the 1st of the month before the code free or before the release. But that is on a Saturday, and we normally extend code freeze up until the last non-holiday day after the code freeze date. So that means that code freeze is actually going to be January 2nd, which is a Sunday. So we have just 1, 2, 3 more days before code freeze, and we have a
Also,
lot.
just to clarify, not a code freeze, a feature freeze.
Sorry, feature freeze. Yes. Feature freeze means that unfinished features that didn't get in before January 2nd will be pushed to the next minor release, 1.22. That still allows us to get in user interface fixes, as well as bug fixes and follow-ups to the ones that we did get in during the 2-week period in between January 2nd and January 15th. So let's see. Before we get into that, Jen, do you have the contrib update ready?
Yep, there's only 2 modules since last week. We have text resize, new release, and read time.
Awesome. Thank you to our contributors that are creating new modules or porting those modules from their Drupal equivalents. So let's see. Today, we normally have an agenda that we run through. There wasn't any suggested items to discuss today other than a topic that was covered during the previous meeting. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull up the 1.21 milestone on GitHub, and I'll share my screen. And we're going to run through each one of these items to see where it is sitting currently. So we have 15 open issues. That's a lot of open issues for the next 3 days. But if you look at the state of these things generally, there's a lot of green on here, which is fantastic. That means that it's primarily right now in the hands of core committers, such as myself or Herbdool or BW Panda, to come in and start taking a look at these items and get them completed. So, oops, My screen keeps reloading. We'll start at the beginning. So drop support for PHP lower than 5.6 or establish a best effort policy. So this decision has been made that we're going to drop support for older versions of PHP before 5.6, but we're not actually going to do it in the 1.21 release. We just haven't opened the 1.22 milestone yet, which perhaps we should create that and move this into that, because the idea is that we'll merge this post 1.21 release, and then we'll have the dropping of support for 5.6 as a notice of some kind through the 1.21 milestone, which means, now that I'm thinking about it, we do need a pull request that surfaces that to the status report. So perhaps this actually should not be fixed, but need a pull request to put that into 1.21, the status report message. But policy-wise, this has been solved. Next up, telemetry module on new installs. I pulled this one up just before the meeting and saw that Doc Wilmot has filed a pull request on this issue that does not affect the installer, turns on telemetry module by default, and then it also adds a block to the dashboard to surface telemetry information to the dashboard. I haven't actually tested it in the sandbox. I've just read over the code. So this is something that we could use some eyeballs on. I think that his note here is correct, that we're still waiting on a PMC decision on this one.
I can just jump in and say that I think we can have a policy decision from the PMC by to allow for opt-in, or opt-out. There is still some debate or discussion going on about how to add new telemetry features, but I'm not sure if that decision would be required for this PR.
Yeah, it's a good question. I view that as being a generally separate problem, but it's still something that should be discussed.
And just to clarify, ideally the sooner the better, but could we go ahead and merge if the assumption is that the policy is going to pass and the PR is ready? Could we go ahead and merge it? And then if there were some policy decision in the next 2 weeks, sort of pull it back, or would you not want to merge it until you had a firm policy decision?
I would prefer the policy set
Sure.
before we do the action. Yeah.
No, I think that'll be fine.
For sure. One thing about the approach that Doc Wilmot has taken here so far is that this definitely needs additional review, because it's not just turning on the module, it's actually making a new block on the dashboard. Telemetry block.
Yeah, actually, this ties into the whole thing of adding new telemetry stats in the future. So the block could be a way of communicating to people that, hey, this is the new things that we're monitoring now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is interesting. It looks like it mostly just says, it just links over to the status report, gives you an option to disable it, and then links to the privacy policy, which actually looks like at this point we don't actually have. There should be a privacy policy page. We already have. This is not the right link, but
yeah, we have one, but it's the privacy policy with regards to the site. It's not with regards to telemetry specifically. But yeah, we could at least create a node and reserve the path, and we can publish it when we make the actual release on the 15th.
Well, and the proposal to allow for opt-out enabling does include a policy. So we should have a policy at the same time we make that decision.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this could use some testing to verify that the approach that Doc Wilmot has taken with the block all looks acceptable. I don't know if the block is required for this to go in. It seems like this is like a putting on your belt after you've already got suspenders on type thing. That it's already on the status report, and this like duplicates that same like information, hey, there's something being reported in another location. Okay. Next up, allow settings for book navigation. This is a pretty simple pull request that HerbDuel has put forward.
Yeah, the feedback there was whether we should make it per content type or global. And some say that it should the per content type thing should be left for contrib, and it should be a global thing for core. Well, anyways.
Yeah.
Jen opened this issue, and Jen, if you haven't had a chance to look at it, you should, because I don't think it does what you asked for in the original request, because it's a global setting, which my interpretation of what you wanted was the ability to have the navigation on book pages, but not on other pages.
Yeah.
And this PR lets you turn off the navigation globally, not distinguish between one content type or another.
Okay, I'll have a look.
Which at least is a step in that direction, but it doesn't get there.
Yeah. We could do a follow-up if needed.
Sure.
Okay, so this one, yeah, definitely still needs review. Yeah, we could potentially proceed with the option that we have now, which is global, and then convert it to per content type later. That's not too difficult of an upgrade path. But yeah, if it's not providing the feature that we want, or especially that the requester originally requested, then yeah, we can reconsider that. Okay, this next one is provide a new hidden path content type in core. This one is continuing to see a lot of activity and discussion. I'm hoping, Tim, you might be able to give us a summary of where we're standing on it right now.
Sure. So we started to talk about this in the last meeting. The status of this is, as of the last meeting, we had tentatively decided to postpone this actually to 1.22, and Nate, this might be news to you, partly because it's going to affect all contrib themes, and we wanted to be able to give contrib themes time to fix it. Now, some of our contrib authors said that they thought 2 weeks would be enough. I had hoped to have a more comprehensive list of which themes would be affected by this meeting so that we could decide if we really wanted to postpone it. But another issue came up, which is whether or not we're currently using a view. And I do have the site open if anybody wants to look at it. I can share my screen. But we're currently using a view for the 3 card blocks. And we had a minor issue, and this issue is not a blocker. We could fix this in other ways. But we had a minor issue in that we were sorting the content by publication date. And on Tugboat, it wasn't sorting properly, presumably because all of the nodes were created at the same time. And so then we were discussing, should we add another sort order field or should we use some other means of sorting it? When Doc Wilmot pointed out that any of those solutions are a little bit hacky, and that really 3 different existing content blocks in different regions would be the most logical choice for this. And I think some of us agreed. We had went with the view for other reasons. In anyways, that just opened this discussion about, should we be using a view for these 3 contents, or should we be or should we have a new layout? And basically, if we wanted existing regions, I think we would have to have a new layout. And unless we had 3 existing content blocks and just styled them like 3 regions, there's a bunch of options out there. And right now we just don't have a firm decision on what is the best option. And I think that if we did move towards anything other than a view, that we'd probably need more time to make sure everything works. So I don't know. I'm kind of feeling like, unless we reverted and decided to just stick with the view and go ahead and try to push this forward, that probably we are going to need to delay this to 1.22 and try to get it in very early in the release cycle. Have this be the first commit. because we're very close. We could get this done in.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. One nice thing about this, at least I feel this way, is that this is not a feature that benefits existing sites. It's about the new site experience.
Right.
So I feel like a lot of people are probably willing to like let this one slide because it doesn't impact their desire for increased functionality on their current sites.
Right.
So yeah, I can see that being a good justification for like, let's not rush this. Okay, great.
Okay, well then I assume if we move on, that is the equivalent of deciding sort of, I mean, we're 90% there, but just accepting that we're going to push this off to 1.22.
Okay.
And then we will need, I would like feedback in the next 2 weeks on this layout option. Because I do want, my big fear is that we don't let this slide until 3 weeks before the next release.
Yeah.
I think this is something, if we make this change, we need to get it in early in 1.22.
Yep. Agree.
Okay.
Okay. Next up, we have trim summary on word boundary. I believe this is basically moving a contrib module into core. Here's the settings that looks like it trims based on like, it can cut off mid-sentence rather than making summaries cut off at a paragraph. So this has the benefit of having a more predictable length of character trimming than the out-of-box functionality on the body field. So let's see, what's the status of this one? It is.
I can chime in on that. So basically, we've hit a problem where the word boundary works, but then things are being cut off and HTML breaks because the HTML tags are being counted within the word or the character count boundaries. So if you look at the very bottom of the last message posted by Peter, he said that he's starting to work on the 309 issue. If you hover over it, you'll see that it's basically the actual issue, which is how to figure out a way to not count HTML characters, like HTML tag characters, in as part of the length. And if you go to that issue, then what was used for the current solution was from Cake, like I think a borrowed function from Cake PHP, which does more things than we want it to. So Peter is actually working or looking for help. Yeah.
Interesting. So this is now kind of expanded in scope, where it's not just about trimming on words, it's also about fixing the current character counting that we use for the current summaries as well, right? Because
At one point, Peter said maybe we should, that was a pre-existing issue, right? That the other issue is really separate from the word split. So he was like, maybe we can make that a follow-up issue. But in this last comment, he seems to have backtracked and said, I think that he's having second thoughts and might want to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
I think either CK editor or the default browser behavior is to, if you have open tags, HTML tags, it automatically tries to close them best as it can, but then you end up with breakages in both situations, both character count and word count. So we're trying to sort of like tackle that issue before we get into the specifics of those.
Yeah, I know in particular things like a table can cause major problems on automatic trimming because it can trim in the middle of the table and just like close the current cell and the current row and then the current table. And you end up with like a row that just like stops in the middle of the row and like the rest of the table is just gone.
Yeah, and if you've allowed div tags in the body field, then you can completely break the layout of your entire site if you strip off 2 or 3 closing div tags. So it's a pretty terrible problem depending on how you have your site configured.
Yeah.
But That's all true, but that is a different issue than the one that was trying to be solved here. And so
Yep.
he had a working solution, that was better than what we had. It just didn't solve the other thing. And
Yep.
so I think that an argument could be made that this PR makes things better without making anything worse. But if, again, I'm not sure if BW Panda is suggesting that maybe his approach here isn't the right one, and the other one would be better for fixing the other problems.
Yep. I don't feel like that this needs to be done in particular order. Like, I think he's saying that both word trimming and paragraph trimming would have similar fixes, but this could go in first, and then the fixes could apply to both of them, or vice versa. We could fix the current trimming and then reuse that on this.
So I missed the first beginning of this, but did you guys talk about this, how the smart trim module does this?
No.
No, we have not.
So that's the current solution. If you have a Drupal or a backdrop site that is unable to trim properly without breaking your formatting, the current solution is to install the smart trim module, because however it does its trimming seems to be much smarter. I haven't looked at the code in that module. I don't know what its quality would be like for core inclusion, but it might be worth reviewing at least the approach they took that fixed the problem. I don't know if it also fixes the problem BW Pandas after here, but it might, maybe it's too late to think about that now. I'm also in favor of making things better, even if it's not perfect. So
Right.
just want to throw that out there.
Okay, here it is. Interesting.
Now, I will say we had somebody in the forum in the last couple of weeks who ported their Drupal 7 site to Backdrop, and teasers that had like several sentences were cut down to just 3 words, because the additional sentences were all in the second paragraph. So if you've got a 600 word limit, but your first sentence is only 2 words, it will cut off after the first sentence, the first 2 words, which seemed really counter. So this already fixes that problem. So it does solve a problem.
Yeah.
Even though it doesn't solve the bigger problem, or the other, I wouldn't say bigger, the other problems.
Interesting.
I'm gonna add a comment in the issue queue for Peter to see with regards to this module. Maybe would help him get unblocked.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if this would help or make it more complicated or whatever, but PHP has a built-in set of objects that allow you to represent a HTML structure and navigate, traverse it, similar to the way you would in JavaScript. And so we could use something like that to traverse arbitrary things like tables or lists or whatever to trim at particular spots. I don't. That might be a lot more work, but
yeah, I don't quite know where that's gonna sit as far as like difficulty and side effects. It looks like the smart trim module is not actually very fancy. I mean, this is like, regular expressions for the most part. It looks like in the end, it actually uses the core text summary for paragraphs. So this module looks like it mostly deals with similar functionality of like trimming based on word length.
Yeah, it somehow doesn't break the HTML tags part. So I don't know, like it'll look for like the end of a paragraph tag and trim after it or something. So, yeah.
Yeah, then it does a bunch more work afterwards. Yeah, interesting. Okay, yeah, so this definitely needs some thinking here, even about the approach, which doesn't put us in a good position on this issue. But
And Nate, how would you feel as a core committer about like if we have something in near ready state that fixes the original problem stated, getting that in for, I mean, if it's a bug fix, I don't know how big the change is, but getting that in like shortly, and then following up with another issue that would be to sort of like rethink the whole problem space? Or would you not want to commit a partial change knowing that something else is coming?
No, I think that's fine. We already have 2 issues here. We've got this one, which is a feature, and then we have the other issue that was opened.
It's at the bottom, the 309.
This one this one's like a bug. So yeah,
Okay.
I think these two things could totally be handled separately. Like Tim,
Okay.
like this is a feature.
Yep.
It adds a new thing and it doesn't create new problems. It just might be more prone to seeing the same problem in a different way.
Yep. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, let's keep going. We got a lot to get through. So allow forms to set custom validation error messages on required fields. This needs work according to the tag. Gregory, you're the advocate for this one. Can you give us a summary?
Yeah, so if you scroll at the very bottom, there's a comment by Doc Wilmot, which I need to respond to. So basically, it started with issue 1040. And when I announced that I was going to be advocating for that, I recall you saying, "Oh, that's a very hard one." I was wondering, what is he talking about? And now I know what you were talking about, because while I started working on inline form messages, there's other things that we need to fix, or some of them are either D7 or D8 things that got committed and improved the situation that we need to backport or crossport. Some of them are like the issue that is linked there, 5346, is a regression that was caused by the solution that was used for D8. So basically, they switched to natively supporting HTML5 validation errors, but now they can't customize the error messages that they're throwing, which is what this issue is about. So basically, this issue is introducing a new parameter, which is, bear with me, it's basically called...
This one, required error and required but empty.
Yes, that's the one. Yes, so this basically allows you to customize those hard-coded browser validation errors. So we need to get that one merged in, and then I guess we need to merge the HTML native validation, and then we can move forward with 1040. But there may be other issues as well. So as I'm digging deeper into the form API, I come across various small issues that need to be solved. And I did at some point started mentioning that I might not be able to get this like 1040 initially for 1.21, but I would like to get it as close as possible, like eliminate as many blockers as possible so that I can eventually get in. I realized that this is breaking some functionality with the search form, so I need to tweak it. I'm hoping to work on it over the weekend.
Okay, so I see what you're saying, that so this affects these other two issues, but
yes,
let me say this again in a different way. You're hoping to get this one done first, is that right?
Yes, and then work my way back towards 5346, which is basically the same implementation backported from D8. But if we manage to get this issue that you're now on right, it won't cause the regression that that is causing in D8 for us.
Yep. Yeah.
So
this functionality would be heavily affected by this new issue, the required attribute, because you need to use the custom messages that are created.
Yes.
Yeah, I see. So it's not really a blocker for this issue, but this issue would be heavily affected if...
It is actually a blocker, because if we merge that as is now, we will get into the same regression that D8 has gotten themselves into, which is the validation error messages are going to be generic browser messages instead of the custom messages that we want them to be.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I see kind of what you're saying. That. Oh, that's really interesting, Greg. I see what you're saying now. So right now, if you have a custom required message in backdrop, if we were to merge this,
yes,
we right now in the validate handler actually set the custom required message. So the validate handler has to fire, but the validate handler can't fire if it's a client side required message. Yeah. So you need to know what the message is without firing the validate handlers in order for this all to work. Interesting. So it has to be separated from the validate handlers and put someplace accessible by itself. In order for us to use HTML5 validation messages, it has to be available outside of the validate handler and be available discretely. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Maybe
So pretty close. I'm hoping to get either one. So the one that is currently that one, yes, 5348 in. Maybe once I get that in, maybe the other one is also really close, which means that I'm a few steps closer to get to working on 1040 for the next release cycle.
Okay. Well, cool. Yeah, I hadn't quite realized how this issue is so important to the other one. Like, yeah. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, thank you for the summary on that one. We'll keep going along because we still have a lot more to go through. Okay, this next one, entity view and Decor. I've been checking in on this one. I think of the people here, I'm best suited to check in on this one. So, you were here in here too, but HerbDuel's been doing all of the work here, fixing up stuff for making this happen. HerbDuel is also reworking a lot of the entity reference module. So his objective is that he thinks that entity reference module as it exists in Contrib is the best solution forward, which is different from our previous direction of trying to use the new reference module. But it doesn't really matter because for this issue, both approaches benefit from the work that is being done here. This is a problem regardless of which entity reference module we use. And so this is preliminary work that we need to get done either way. So HerbDuel has been doing excellent work on this. Argi Piano, which I'm not actually sure how to pronounce that handle, but Alejandro has been also working back and forth with Herb, and we've been getting some really excellent results here. The current pull requests, Alejandro has been doing a huge amount of work testing it with various Contrib modules to make sure, here we are, so basic entity plus, search API, membership entity, rules, registration, paragraphs, UberCart, and been working through all of these things and confirmed that all of these things work with the current approach with an exception of UberCart, but that's because UberCart has a bug in it that is separate from this problem. So it's looking really good. So overall, this all looks really good. I think that this one's completely feasible for us to get in. Looks like it's back to RTBC, and I've reviewed it, and I think it looks good. There's some follow-up work here that I'd like to get done, but it's not a blocker on this overall issue. If I were to get into it just a little bit, what I don't like about this issue is the fact that finding how content is viewed becomes more difficult to figure out because there's more layers of nesting. But that's the same problem we already have for stuff like the load operation on a node. It used to just be node load, you look in node load and you could see it querying from the database. Now you have to go to the node storage controller to find out where stuff is loaded from. And this kind of adds that same abstraction to the viewing operations that we already have for the loading operations. The thing I like about this, though, is that we are coming to an agreement that we currently have these classes that do storage, and then we have these classes that do non-storage operations. And based on the backdrop focus on certain, like making decisions around way things work, we really only support MySQL, and we don't support alternative field storages that we should merge together some of these classes that are currently separated, because in backdrop, we only support database-driven field storage in the first place. So this, while it adds abstraction in one place, a follow-up issue would be to remove some of the abstraction to flatten the structure a little bit. So I think it'll be a net, like this is a good thing by doing this. Plus, of course, we get the functionality we need for entity reference module. So big win on that front. Okay, sorry, that was too much talking about that. It's in good shape. Does anyone have any questions on that?
tried to follow up, but it's above my length, my depth of knowledge. And but I appreciate. I saw all the comments and the back and forth in the PR, and I appreciate all the work that is being done.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, next up is optimize menu navigation links rebuild. Joseph is the advocate for this one. It's already marked RTBC, which is fantastic. Let's see, who is our Doc Wilmot was our reviewer here. I also reviewed it last week. It looks really good. I don't have any complaints about the approach so far, but I want to give it one more look over before we put this in. Joseph, do you want to say anything about this issue?
I did make a change to it, but I think that was before you reviewed it, so I don't think there's anything really to discuss about that. Who was it? I think Jen was commenting on the pull request that she was uneasy about the removing. I had to remove part of a test in order to make the tests pass. And she wanted us to ask a core committer about that.
Yeah, just a second opinion. It made me a little nervous because I was like, are we supposed to support that? But if we don't need it, it's fine.
So we have some tests that check that. So this is in the menu link reparenting tests. And we have some tests that check that menu link reparenting works in if you use what is it, menu link delete, I think. So you load the link, you get the ID, you pass it in a menu link delete. Everything works fine in those tests. In these tests, it just does a DB delete. But because I'm using a static cache internally, this doesn't get updated in the static cache until the next page load. And so the menu reparenting doesn't happen until the next page load. And so these tests fail.
Could you reset the static cache and maintain this test?
Or can you change it so it doesn't use a DB delete and works like the other one?
Well,
I think this is intentionally doing things the wrong way.
Right.
That's weird.
It says in the comment right above your mouse cursor, it says that it's trying to simulate a database crash, which I don't think we actually support database crashes anywhere else in Core.
Yeah, it's an interesting concern. I think it would be nice to be able to maintain the tests. So I would say let's try to get the tests working.
Okay.
But yeah, this is kind of an interesting situation here.
I have spent some time messing with those and rearranging things, and so far nothing I've done has gotten them to pass.
Yeah. Okay. We'll take a look.
Also, to be clear, I don't think that would. I don't know. I don't think like not being able to support a crash database would make me want to prevent a menu optimization. So just everything in context would be good to.
And yeah, and right above that block, it basically does the exact same thing with menu link delete, and those had no problem.
Yeah. Okay. Great. I'll take a look at that when I next review it. All right, let's see, we've got 10 minutes left. Better default position for breadcrumbs on the installation of new sites. I haven't checked in on this one in a long time. Tim, you're probably the best suited to talk about this.
Sure. This was RTBC, but we were making the change in install profile, Nate, and you recommended that we move it to the core layout. And I made that change. So I think, yeah, that's where it's at.
Okay.
It was RTBC. You had a suggestion. I think we've met that suggestion. You just have to review it and see if it's correct.
Okay, great. Super. Okay, breadcrumb, add empty option to theme item list. I haven't even seen this one before, but I like the sound of it already. So if you're using an item list, ooh, I like it up until when I saw this syntax. Pound empty, and then you put pound markup inside of it? What kind of thing is this?
I'm not sure if that was the final implementation. I haven't touched this in a while.
Okay, I like this more. Okay, so Robert came in here and said this can be a string or a render array. So pound empty actually could just be a translated string, which would be a common use case, I would think. Okay, well, this is interesting. I see what this is. So this pound markup actually would be
It's just
like
a render array.
a render array that is a single level deep, that is a pound
Yeah.
type of markup. Yeah, I don't particularly.
It's just an example because there's T in it. It looks really funny.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not quite sure how I feel about that render array being in there. I don't think that that's common for other properties, but
I think a single level markup that just has a T function as its value is just the same as having a T function.
Yeah.
So
mhm,
like those would both give the same output.
yeah.
I think it just looks funny because it's written that way. But if it was something more useful, like that example might not be valid, but I think the implementation is probably fine.
Yeah, I wonder if we
Examples.
could.
Odd.
Yeah. Well, I think we should try to find if there's another place in Form API that does this sort of thing where it takes a string or renderable like this
Yeah.
as a property.
And basically, I've just backported what's already in Drupal, so it's more like a feature parity. So if people are trying to backport code, it would work the same. But I'm fine if we don't want to have certain things work that way. And I've created a change record, a draft change record, as I say there, so you can have a look at that.
Okay. Great. I'll express my concerns in a comment.
Okay, cool.
Okay, separate help text for publishing options. I've not seen this one.
Also RTBC.
Yeah, it's like one of our old good ones and favorite ones.
Oh yeah, this one. Okay. Yeah, where it takes this one giant paragraph and it separates it into separate descriptions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
It looks so nice.
Yeah, that looks really nice. Look at that. Okay. Great. Marked RTBC already. That's fantastic. All right. Use region names as classes in flexible templates. It's currently marked RTBC. So this is like kind of running it through like a machine name simplification, transliteration, probably, right?
So it used to be that if you had like a 3-column layout that were all 33%, you couldn't target any one of those individual regions by itself because the only classes that were on there were the bootstrap classes that made them all the same size. And so this allows you, it will take whatever you've provided as the region name, and if you haven't provided anything, it'll take the region number and create a unique class for each region. I would like a sanity check on the syntax for the class because there was a little bit of back and forth about that. And the latest version was my recommendation, but I'm not sure anyone other than Herb has had a chance to see it. So we could get some other eyes on that. My thoughts were that it should start with L because it's related to layouts, and all of our other layout classes start with L. But but there was also some feedback in the issue that it should contain the word region so that people knew that it was, in case your region name was something like, I don't know, puppy or something, you would know it was region puppy and not something else puppy. So I ended up doing L region and then a double hyphen and the region name. And I know we usually use the double hyphen to indicate that it is a permutation of the parent template theme hook suggestion. And so I wanted just a sanity check on that, or if we wanted to convert that to a single hyphen. I just thought for legibility it was easier that way, but I didn't want the meaning to be problematic.
Okay. So it sounds like we need to have a little syntax discussion. Is this a machine name element?
No.
So this screenshot, it doesn't actually have this edit link here?
Yeah. There's another issue now that handles the custom classes. This is now just automatic.
Okay. Yeah.
And if you look in the top post, I put the example syntax in the original post at the top, where it says markup for region before, markup for region after.
Yeah. If it hasn't been raised already, I have a concern here that transliteration always doesn't always do a good job. If this like region name, the label were like in Japanese, for example, the machine name would probably need fixing.
Okay. So is that also true for the machine names in the layouts that we're using now? Because that's the field we're using.
So I think it's fine that machine names use transliteration to try to make a reasonable machine name at the time that a label is created. But I think it's important that they be able to be customized right away, because a lot of times in these non-Latin character languages, a person that knows English will use Japanese or Chinese as the label, but then they'll immediately use English for the machine name. And they don't transliteration, they actually use an English word for the machine version of things.
Okay, so if this might solve both problems. If we just swap out the label field that we have now with a machine name field, I mean, with a, is that what it's called? A machine field, pound machine, form API type?
Yeah.
We would end up with getting both the label field and the ability to customize the machine half of it. And then we could use the machine half for the CSS class. I don't think we'd even considered that, but that would solve both the I want to customize my CSS class and name my region problem.
Yeah. So I think, just, and you wouldn't call it CSS class. You would just literally have region name and then a machine for the region. Yep.
Yeah, we just change that input field as it is now to a pound machine type.
Yep.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. I'll write that comment in there and say it's from you, because that was a good idea.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that that's what this was indicating, but that might have changed. So, okay, we are out of time, but let's see if we can get through the last 4 of them here. Okay, negative visibility condition for roles. This looks like it's probably adding a negate type option.
Yep. At some point, the suggestion was made that the negation was added generally in every visibility rule, but we left that for a follow-up. So this is only for the specific four roles. And that's it.
Okay. Well, I'm not really quite sure about the. Oh, it looks like this is the option. Okay. Yeah. This looks fine. Because wait.
This shows examples of how we use negate in other places, but not for roles. Now we introduce the same thing for roles. So if you,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I trust you guys on syntax and terminology. Generally, you're really good at that sort of thing. So I'll take a look at it.
Yep.
Okay.
That's the other part, half of the issue that you were discussing before.
Okay. Looks like it currently works for me. Okay, great. Okay, so this would probably be in conjunction with the other one. So regions would start having machine names, and then you'd also be able to add additional CSS classes, potentially. Great.
Yes.
Yeah, although this becomes a lot less
important
necessary if you can already customize the machine name.
Yeah, I think we'll get a benefit to the machine name thing separate from just the CSS stuff, because it's possible that like we might start making the machine name available like in the templates, or start using the machine name. I see a lot of benefits to having a machine name for regions and not just the CSS. So I don't think that this wouldn't replace the name for machine names,
No, I was saying having a machine name that's customizable might make this issue
Less important.
unnecessary.
No,
Because
I
if you
think-
want to add a CSS class, you can do it by writing the machine name that you want. It's not
Yeah.
intuitive, like it's not labeled like
Mhm.
to add a custom CSS class, change your machine name. But I don't know.
Yeah, I
We'll-
think this
we'll see
could
what people
still be
think.
useful for people that are using various CSS frameworks that need to use a fixed
Oh,
class.
multiple. This one can do multiple classes too. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's lots of good reasons for this too.
Yeah, and this was mentioned as well in a comment that for newer versions of Bootstrap, I think they support more variations of the classes, so it allows people
Yeah.
to customize and use that. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, looking good. It's marked works for me, but needs code review. One more layout issue. Boy, lots of layout issues. Add help text to explain how order and grouping in that page works. I'm not quite sure what that page is, but
The layout listing.
this was mentioned a year ago. So it would be very fitting to get it corrected. Now.
So yes, this starts. Yeah, so that's the second screenshot is what we're doing.
Oh, interesting. Help.
Well, it's not help now. This is the first mockup, but yeah, if you can quickly spin up the tugboat.
There
There
it
you go.
is. How layouts work. People are like, what is this madness?
Interesting.
So basically, we're using the newly introduced details form element to add help text that is collapsed by default, so it's out of the way from people that already know how things work.
Interesting. Okay. I'll take a look at that. Okay, and then lastly, upgrade jQuery UI to the latest version, which is 1.13.
So I just added the milestone for this. Because I'd love to see it get in. I'm doing some testing on the sandbox right now, but it would be good to have core committer feedback on whether this is suitable for inclusion in 121.
Yeah, I'd like this to get in as well. I'm worried about the time
Testing.
we have, but yeah, there's some other concerns here as well that are in favor of getting it in as soon as possible. So, okay. Well, that's it. That's the list. That's quite a list of things. It looks like a couple of these hidden path is likely to
So many RTBC.
to get the bump. But yeah, there's a lot of RTBCs. I've been going through this week. I merged a couple of these, and I'm hoping to get through a lot more of them.
Oh wait,
today
I have a
tomorrow.
question.
Mhm.
I forgot. On the CSS automatic CSS class, if all we're doing is adding a CSS class, I was wondering if that would be suitable for 120 instead of 121. If we make the machine name change, does that make it definitely 121, or would that still qualify as a bug fix that could go into 120?
I think adding machine name is a new feature.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and I would not want us to do the automatic machine name, because then we would need to support that somehow moving forward. Like that makes it so it gets more complicated to add machine name later. If you needed to remove the automatic one and put in the manual one, then you need to do some work there.
So right now the automatic machine name is like a hash, I think.
Yeah, there's just a UUID. Yeah.
Yeah. So can you say what you just said again about the automatic versus manual one?
So if we made an automatic machine name right now,
And by machine name, you mean CSS class?
yeah, sorry, an automatic CSS class now, then when we support the manual machine name later,
We would still have to support the automatic class we made before.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Okay.
it would definitely be preferable to just jump right to the customizable name rather than using the automatic one.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna take a stab at that. That's a good idea.
Okay. All right. we are out of time, but I'll let anybody, if they have any questions or other things they'd like to look at before we close.
The issue that I mentioned can wait because it's a bug fix or a task. It can wait for other time. But I just wanted to say that since we're getting things done, springtime, everybody.
I'm going to try and be available on Sunday.
Yeah, same here, or throughout the weekend.
Yeah,
It's actually a public holiday on Monday and Tuesday for Australia, so I'm not working. So I'll be around
Ooh.
to help with the feature freeze and moving things around if we do that.
really. What holidays are you guys having on those days?
Year's
I
Day.
think, yeah, they moved because it falls on a weekend. They moved it, so it's what's the verb that they're using? Observing the holiday for
New Year's
Yeah.
Day.
on
Interesting.
the second day. Yeah, it was the same with Christmas and Boxing Day. Well, we had Monday and Tuesday off last week.
Huh. Yeah, in the United States, they're observing New Year's Day on Friday for some reason.
Next Friday.
This Friday, like tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Which is kind of weird. I would have thought that would have been global, actually, and now that I'm hearing that it's not global.
So sprinting tomorrow then?
Yeah, I'm like, does this mean we have one more day? I don't know. Like, we try not to be U.S. centric in our policy making, and so like if internationally, if there are lots of countries that are observing New Year's Day on the 3rd, that would mean that we should push the code freeze to the end of the 3rd.
I won't be working. Peter won't be working, so it means that we have one active user of the community and one core committer on holiday, so it would benefit us. But yeah, whatever the decision is.
I don't have enough information to say that right now. I don't think.
No worries.
but let's keep people posted. We'll look into that. We'll announce it via Twitter and discuss it in Zulip. And maybe we'll even make an issue about what day code freeze should be, because I didn't think that was different across countries, but it is. So we need to figure that out. Okay. But let's still plan on. I like the code sprint on Sunday idea. I'm widely available through the end of the year, through the next couple of days. So I'm really hoping I'll be able to knock out all of these RTBC ones that just need committer feedback. So I think we're in good shape. I'm very excited about the list of features here. We may not have gotten entity reference in again. But I feel like there's serious momentum, and that always gets me excited. So
Yeah.
Big thanks to all of our contributors, and we'll have a busy next couple of days.
Cool. All right. Thanks everybody for joining.